everybody, this is Two Guys Take on Real Estate. I'm Kevin the Property Prince, and I'm making a quick YouTube video because we have so many people following up with an amazing amount of interest about wholesaling and driving for dollars.
Two Guys Take on Real Estate.
If you're getting into wholesaling and driving for dollars and you've watched some of our other videos on our channel about these topics, you've hopefully taken your first few steps, maybe gotten yourself a bunch of leads, and are starting to get to the point, or at least closer to the point, where you have somebody that's willing to sell you a property, and now you're thinking to yourself, uh-oh, what do I do next? I got to go back and watch the Two Guys Take on Real Estate video to tell me what my next step is. So hopefully you're watching a little bit ahead, and you've already gotten to the point where you're worried about, what am I having these people sign? I need some kind of a contract. All right, so here's the general gist of it is, yeah, you're basically going to be having a potential seller sign a contract that allows you or the person you're assigning it to or entity you're assigning it to the ability to purchase the property you're discussing. So the idea is if you're just flipping a contract or doing a wholesale deal, you're not actually the one that's going to be performing on the contract. You're the one that's creating the contract, and then you're going to assign it to someone else. You're basically going to sell the rights to that contract to someone else, like a flipper or someone you know that's looking for their next project. So what you're basically doing here is you're going to be creating a sheet of paper that is a very, very basic purchase and sales contract. It's going to be something that doesn't have to have a ton of information in it. It's not overly complicated. We actually do provide an example on one of our videos, the wholesaling step-by-step video, and it's in the description or details section of that video. You can check it out there, but regardless, whatever contract, of course, that you're using, you don't want to just download something from Google and start having people signing contract documents without having them reviewed for compliance with your local, your state laws. So what I would really encourage is to find somebody local to you that's familiar with your state laws, understands what wholesaling is, and have them review anything that you want to come up with. Now, the idea with a contract is you can kind of create it, and it can be as plain English as you'd like in layman's terms, and that's actually probably all the better. But your lawyer or somebody that's, like I said, legally familiar with all your stuff can advise you and help you tweak the language in it to make sure you're using words and phrases and everything that's legally enforceable. Now, your contract, what does it need to include? Well, some really, really basic stuff. The idea is it needs to include the name of both parties involved, the seller themselves. Make sure you're having the deed holders, the people that actually own the property, signing off on the property, who it's being sold to, which would essentially be you or your business if you're running it through an LLC. And the fact that you have the right to assign it to somebody. So it could be, Joe Schmo, the seller, agrees to sell the property to Kevin from Two Guys Take on Real Estate, or his, assigned person, here. And that's really just completely vague. It just says whoever I want to assign it to. The next thing you want to have it include is, of course, just the address of the property, the location of the property, very specifically, so there's no doubts in terms of what's being sold. You want to have a couple of other things in there too. Obviously, the purchase price, that's the main thing, and that's what you're negotiating back and forth on, and that's one of the main focuses of the part of the wholesaling experience. After you've gotten somebody the idea to agree to the idea of selling the property, you need to negotiate and come up with an actual price that you're agreeing to. That's the price you're entering there. So if you've talked the person back and forth and you settled on $75,000, literally that's what you're writing in. So who's involved in the transaction? You and the seller, and your person that you're assigning it to. What transaction it is, what property address is, what's the subject of it, and so that's going to be written in there. And then, of course, the pricing. I mean, very basic stuff, right? It's really, really that simple. Now, there's a few other things you need to make sure you're putting in there. You want to have, again, depending on your state and local laws and everything like that, you want to have a few options in there for you. So one of the things we found, and I think you're going to find too, is that sometimes you've heard of buyer's remorse. When somebody goes to a store, maybe they bought something really, really cool. Maybe the guy went to the store and he gets home and he gets kind of yelled at because he didn't run it by the wife. He comes back to the store the next day and he's got to return everything. So could be that. It could be somebody got really excited about something. Maybe a couple went shopping, and then they went home and they kind of did their budget, and then they realized this is way more than they should have ever spent. They have buyer's remorse, and they change their mind and they want to back out of their purchase. This also happens to sellers. So something that prevents you from having to deal with seller's remorse is, first of all, the best thing that's going to prevent it is you and the expectations you've set to make this contract happen. But more importantly, a phrase in your contract that basically allows you to enforce the contract, which essentially would be almost a lawsuit if somebody changed their mind and then refused to perform on the contract. The next thing you want to make sure you have, and probably one of the more important pieces you want to have in your contract, is how quickly you're going to perform, or the person you signed the contract to will perform on the contract. So the idea is, and part of the reason you're doing all this, is it's a very quick sale, a very quick transaction. Usually you want to make sure that this is going to happen within the next couple of weeks. Part of the whole idea of wholesaling a property and getting this thing and convincing a seller about this is that it's basically a cash transaction. It's a very quick transaction that'll end their headaches about this property almost immediately. So you want to make sure the time frame is clearly listed and shown about when the property will close in your contract. And then one of the things that I would really recommend, and again, always have your contract terms reviewed by somebody local to you for state and local compliance, is some type of clause that allows you to back out of the deal or escape from the contract yourself if there's something that goes wrong. So I would really suggest some type of inspection clause at the end of the contract or in the contract that allows you to cancel out the contract on your end of things pending an inspection. So basically, you bring a flipper through, or you go back by and see the property the next day, and wow, now you notice something that you didn't see the evening before because maybe it was a little bit too dark, or it was hidden or obscured, or something along those lines. Or the flipper sees something that is just horrible, like they find out there's an underground oil tank or massive cracks in a section of foundation that you couldn't previously see or notice. You need the ability to back out of that contract based on a further inspection being performed, and that allows you the ability to back out of the deal if the deal can't go forward. Maybe you can't find a flipper to take the property at the price you guys quoted, etc., etc. So that's, in a nutshell, some of the basic meat and potatoes that needs to go into your contract. But again, always make sure it's reviewed by somebody, and you can take a look at example contracts right here on our YouTube channel. So please take a second, and if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, find our subscribe button and the alert bell. Make sure you click subscribe and ring the alert bell so that you can stay updated when all of our new videos go live. Until next time, thanks once again. This is Kevin the Property Prince from Two Guys Take on Real Estate.